Hey, everybody. Welcome to Tuesday Tips. I'm Tammy Ebright, your host. Momentarily, Jen Johnson will be joining us to share on sharing your story, how to unleash your amazing story. So stay tuned. Make sure that you subscribe to my channel, give this video a like, and share it with your friends if you find value. And let's get started. Jen has been a friend and fellow Wister of mine. We actually met about 2.5 years ago in Seattle at our leadership event, and love her. We reconnected recently when I was in California, and I was just excited that she agreed to be on our show today. Welcome, Jen.
Thank you so much for having me, Tammy. I'm so excited that we get to do this together.
I know, it's so fun. I can't believe that while planning the empowerment event that we didn't end up doing this.
I know. But, timing is what it is. We're here.
We are here.
Yes.
So today, Jen is going to be sharing with us how to unleash your amazing story. And she has a phenomenal story for sure of her journey and leaning into intuition, and I cannot wait to chat with her about it today. So Jen, let's get started.
Yes, let's do it. Do you want to?
So you said that there's 6 major steps to unleashing your story. What is step number 1?
Well, step number 1 really is acknowledging that there is power in your story. As a widow of almost 6 years, it took me a while to really understand how powerful my story was and how I could help and grow others through that story. A lot of us carry stories with us throughout our lives, and we're not sharing them as much as we could be. And we could be helping so many people if we were to do so. It really is the most valuable thing we have to offer other people, regardless of whether it's in a professional setting or a personal setting, no matter what, it is what binds us with other people. People follow others because of their stories, because they can relate. They want to know that people have traveled similar journeys to them. And really, from a sales perspective, from a business perspective overall, it can be a competitive advantage for you in a lot of ways by opening up to your clients, your customers, your coworkers, your bosses, and really connecting with them on a deeper level.
I think that is so powerful because when I shared my raw story last year at the empowerment event, I had so many ladies come up to me and just thank me. And I'm known as a widow resource here in Kansas City. I get conversations and people to call or message me all the time when they have a friend that's lost a spouse and asking, what should they do? How can they help? And if I hadn't been okay with sharing my story, then they wouldn't even know to reach out to me. So
That's
it's
right.
powerful.
Yeah, and that's pretty much how I ended up doing the things that I do in my professional and personal life, is that as I told my story, more people came forward with their stories and looked to me as a resource and looked to me as kind of their pillar of information and strength and camaraderie. And people come out of the woodwork everywhere. I was in the grocery store the other day buying a lottery ticket, which I never do, but I felt an intuitive hit to buy a lottery ticket. And the woman behind me in line was, we were chatting. It turns out she's a widow. And we were talking about the funny stories of our husbands, their little one-liners about the lottery. My late husband, as you say, it just took $1 and a dream, baby. But I meet people everywhere all the time. And because I'm sharing my story, they feel open to share theirs. You're
creating a safe space for that.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah. it brings forward your most authentic self, which does create a safe place for them. People, they know immediately whether you are genuine or not. They can feel that from you. So authenticity, bringing that forward, makes us immediately have an intimacy, a trust, a connection with them. It's universally relatable. And, you know, people want to work with you. They want to be around you because of it.
So that's tip number 2, sharing yourself authentically.
Yes, that is tip number 2. And, you know, the more that you are sharing your authentic truth, the more, you know, and the more that you're spreading that to other people, there's just this ripple effect that goes, you know, beyond them. So you're really creating this amazing force for, you know, healing way beyond, you know, that you would expect.
I think what's so interesting for me about this journey is it took losing my husband for me to completely be my real authentic self.
Yes.
You know, I don't know that I realized that I wasn't. I just was kind of living life. But whenever you really dive deep into grief and your self-discovery of purpose, you transform in hopefully a really amazing way.
Yeah, well, I think the one, you know, big gift in this journey in grief is that, you know, you are so broken that everything is just out on the table. The light just kind of shines through you. Everything about you becomes right out in front of your face because you're so broken, there's no other option. And if you allow yourself, you can find the best parts of who you can become through that brokenness. And that was really, you know, my mission for myself and my kids, because I have 2 young boys, was that, okay, if I'm going to be this broken, if we're going to have this hugely traumatic experience in our lives, let's do the best we possibly can with it. And that did allow me to, you know, discover this part of myself, or this whole being really, that, you know, I'd always wanted to be.
I completely agree. I completely agree because, you know, being your authentic, real, vulnerable self is not for the faint of heart at times.
No, definitely not.
But it's so powerful.
Yeah.
So Jen, what's tip number 3?
So tip number 3 is that sharing, or our stories really are tied to our health. And I think a lot of people don't realize that when we are not sharing our stories, it really can create you know, bigger issues within our physical being. And sometimes that actually translates to illness, to diseases. And there is actually research that backs that up. But I mean, if we're carrying around this constant shame, pain, guilt, remorse, whatever it is from our, you know, our experiences, and we're constantly feeling weighed down by that, then our authentic selves aren't really able to come through. And the longer that storage remains, your physical being cannot take it. So, you know, there's really no separation between us and our story. It's physical, connected to emotional, connected to spiritual and mental, all of that. And when we're vulnerable and we're open, then our physical being can eventually let that go and, you know, heal itself.
Yeah, I would agree. I know that a lot of people do think, and even myself in the beginning, it's like swimming, and just going through the motions and going through the motions, and, you know, not putting our oxygen mask on first because we had little children that we needed to care for. And then once you do decide to, okay, now it's time to take care of me, which ideally you do sooner than later, then it's a powerful transition and transformation process for sure.
Yeah, and when you release the weight of all that. Literally, I have seen my body change shape because I was less, when I became less stressed. And that, clearly diet, exercise, all of that plays into it. But when your body can just relax into itself and not be tense all the time and not be fighting itself all the time, that allows us to then, we're taking better care of ourselves, but then we're able to take care of everybody else around us better as well. And that's, it's actually, I have a lot of little missions in my journey now, but one of them is self-care. It's huge because I know that it is so tied to our physical self. And so, I've kind of released all expectations for myself physically because I know that I'm living well. I know that my health is good because I take good care of myself and I'm in a good mental and emotional place. The other thing is that if we're holding on to those stories, we are then potentially passing those on to generations beyond us, and stories from our parents' generation and before them get stored with us. And so we have to be conscious of releasing those stories as well. So the more that I come forward and say, you know what, I grew up in an alcoholic family, and I was really challenged as a child, and I know now that I want to break those patterns so that my children have a better life. And that being widowed, I'm very conscious of making sure that I'm, not projecting anything onto my children that is not healthy and natural. And grief is very natural, but I don't want them feeling, what's happened from generations past. And that all stored with us physically. So that's, and emotionally. And so the more that I'm out there saying, hey, I'm not just a widow, but I grew up in a tough time in my childhood, then yes, that frees it from me and frees it from the people that I'm talking to as well.
Yes, sharing your story, and no matter what it looks like, is definitely powerful. And the whole epigenetics that goes into the past stories, or even others, the paradigms that people put onto us that we have to, or we get to decide to release. It's not that we have to. We could still keep going through the emotions and have our mask on, but taking your mask off, it makes us more beautiful humans.
Yeah. I remember it was just a couple weeks after my husband died, my mother-in-law said to me, I think this is the most beautiful I've ever seen you. And I was a freaking mess. It was a mess. I probably hadn't showered. I had no idea if I slept, but she said, this is the most beautiful I've ever seen you, because I had this peace come through me at that moment. And so people really do see you they see you as a brighter light, which then reflects onto them and allows them to shine brighter. So it's not just a physical, it's a very energy related thing as well. And in terms of that, tip number, we did 4. Tip number 5 is, telling our stories opens us up to receiving, the ability to receive abundance in every way in our life. And so, along with the physical release, we get this energetic release that, we can then take the energy that has been focused on containing our story, on shifting the story. We can take that and apply it to new things in our lives. And we can become more creative. We can become, more, find other opportunities and create different successes. And
because whenever you're scared to share your story, you still have that story inside you. Yes. But whenever you share it and you release any shame or guilt that you feel about that story, you're opening up space inside you to grow and to let new story and, manifest abundance into your life.
Absolutely. Yeah, in every way. I mean, whether you're just trying to create, get a sales quota, or you're wanting a new relationship, if you are struggling financially and you want that kind of abundance, all of that plays into it. Because if we're so set on our story of we're not going to make our goals, we're not going to be abundant, the more of that story we hang on to, the less that's going to happen.
Yes.
So when you're unapologetic and completely open about your story, opportunities from every angle come in and just flourish your life. So being conscious.
Don't Stop Believing seems to play for me whenever I'm with those people. I don't know why, but
yeah, I mean, being around the right people is key as well. If you're around the people that are stuck in their stories, aren't willing to look beyond their stories, they're not willing to share their stories, they've just decided, okay, this is who I am, and that energy projects onto you and limits your ability for that abundance. And so you have to be conscious of that as well. And tip number 6 is that it increases our ability to give more to others and ourselves, to be more generous. People who share their stories are automatically more giving of their spirit, and they provide validation, healing, hope, and inspiration to everyone around them. And like you and I were saying, people just automatically come up to us now because we're out there saying, hey, I'm a widow. Hey, I have life challenges. Hey, I have, these goals that I want to make. And
but I'm choosing to be positive through this challenge or all of the challenges that life seems to like to, hit us upside the head with sometimes. It's a choice. Positivity is a choice.
It is. And that projects onto everyone around you, and it projects your entire field of what goes on in your life. But, the biggest thing for me, and we talked a little bit earlier about intuition, is how much more connected to yourself you become. You're not just connecting to others and inspiring them, you inspire yourself by releasing those stories. You become more empathic, empathetic to others, empathetic to yourself, and giving yourself some grace where you need it. But I mean, in my entire widowhood, I've relied strictly on my intuition, and it has served me correctly every single time. And that, knowing my story of, okay, I'm a widow, that's what I am. My kids lost their dad. I lost my husband. I have to create a whole new life for myself. Okay, universe, who's going to help me do that? And how, I trust you to make it happen and have it work out. And you're going to provide me the guidance that I need. So I've 100% relied on that. But that's because I come from that place of, here's my story and it's okay. I have no shame or guilt or regret around it. And that just allows me to, really sink into myself and everything around me.
For sure. And you have this positive, caring, like just presence. And I remember sitting in Seattle and having this conversation right before you were getting ready. You were selling your home and moving you and your boys from Seattle to California. And I was like, wow, you are the coolest girl ever. Like, I loved that.
I get that response all the time. It's either, wow, I'm just so inspired by that, or, oh my gosh, you're crazy, and I know I'm not crazy, but that was total intuition. That was me saying, okay, I'm creating a new story for myself. I want something different. I want something new. I want for my boys and I to be filled with this joy and purpose that we, haven't known in the years after my husband died. So you know what? How are we going to do that? And I just get this intuitive hit that it's California, and here we are 2 years later, And it has been the best choice we could have made. But that was strictly my intuition. But when I tell people that, they're like, really? Like, you don't have friends, you weren't moving for a job, you weren't, I'm like, nope. I just knew I was supposed to do it.
I'm just going to the beach.
I'm just going to the beach.
It all is better.
What?
It's all better at the beach.
It's all better at the beach. Yeah, you can't go wrong. Can't go wrong with a little saltwater healing, cleansing therapy. It's amazing. It's a good opportunity to ground yourself as well, which, you know, comes as part of sharing a story also. So
yes. So I was just looking at the Facebook to see if we had any like questions or anything like that,
yes,
but I'm not seeing anything yet.
Okay.
I know that you have to get kiddos from the bus stop, and I really, really appreciate you sharing yourself and sharing some of your story and how perceptive and your perspective on it. And I love you, girl.
I love you too. Thank you so much for having me. It's been so much fun. I hope we get to do it again.
We for sure will.
Yay! Okay, cool.
All right, talk to you later. Bye.